How many ways are there to learn a language? Without any doubt, many people learn a variety of foreign languages to certain levels using various methods. Since there are a myriad of subjective parameters involved, it is hard to distinguish which of these methods are better than others with ease. Nevertheless, it is possible to see some of these methods surpass others in the long run. Notwithstanding the abundance of language learning methods out there, the American linguist and pedagogue Stephen Krashen maintains that we acquire languages only with one single element of these methods. The important thing at this point is that, as Krashen himself puts it, a language is not so much a matter of learning something, but rather of an acquisition of a skill. Well, what is this element? As conceptualized by him, it is comprehensible input. Although Dr. Krashen never claims to have invented the concept of comprehensible input, he does believe that, in no small measure, did he prove that language acquisition takes place only as such. He then essays to base the empirical data he collected by relating it to the concept coined by Noam Chomsky, namely to the language acquisition device, abbreviated as LAD. Briefly, according to Chomsky, it is with this innate device supposedly in our brain that we acquire languages. We clearly see this manifested in an infant's process of acquiring his or her mother tongue by being exposed to the language over a long period of time and with no knowledge of grammatical concepts such as subject, object, direct object, etc. This is the most lucid instance of such an acquisition. In this sense, coming to be able to speak, write, read, and listen in a language is not so much an outcome of consciously and dryly memorized formulae and vocabulary, as we are forced to do in schools and language courses, as it is of the unconscious adaptation with lots of exposition to the language. Yet, of utmost importance here is Krashen's remarks in regards to the comprehensibility of this exposition, that is, of the input. Let us now envision a kid saying, "I am hungry," to his mom, whilst pointing to the food being cooked. Witnessing such a scene, someone of no prior knowledge in English, with no reference to any dictionary, will most likely understand the intelligible content of the words voiced, that is, the very fact that the kid is expressing his hunger. On the contrary, a sentence similar to, "Let it be known to thy birth-giver that thy stomach consists of nothing," even if listened to thousands of times, will not carry the novice acquirer a step further by virtue of its complexity, that is, of its incomprehensibility. Although the language aimed at here is English, on account of answering questions in advance, we believe we ought to introduce a similar book which works the best for those working to acquire the Latin language, as both books share the same methodological premises. The masterpieces Familia Romana and Roma Aeterna, written entirely in Latin by Hans Orberg, begin by teaching Latin to those who have no prior knowledge in Latin by providing them the easiest, that is, the most easily comprehensible Latin sentences. By the end of the second book, you will be able to read excerpts from Latin classics by only reading through the target language, namely, Latin only. Briefly, Orberg teaches us Latin through meticulously formulated degrees of comprehensible Latin input. The tips and hints presented in the margins of each page are of great assistance to the student at times in which the context isn't enough for the student to comprehend the given structure or vocabulary. The text is read without references to any other language besides Latin. Well then, besides its usage by the masters of language teaching in the field of Latin, isn't there a similar work, a method specifically prepared and designed for students of English? To answer briefly, yes. A book that teaches English via English, that is, with the nature method, entitled English by the Nature Method, was written by Arthur Jensen in the mid-20th century within the body of the Nature Method Institutes. After receiving positive feedback, the Italian, French, and Russian versions were later written. It is hard to understand why these books have been nearly lost and known to only a few, which in itself may be a topic of an academic paper. However, especially considering that even though we know that there is an existent version of the method in Russian, it is now almost impossible to obtain. You can learn English naturally by reading and listening to the audio versions we made ready on our channel and by drilling the exercises given at the end of each chapter. By the time you start listening and reading the book, it will be obvious to you how diligent Jensen was while writing the book in terms of vocabulary repetition, sentence structure, and so on. Thus you avoid coming up against the wall or barrier which appears at certain levels for most students. In addition, if you already have prior knowledge in English, the book will still be helpful to you to become more fluent. In this sense, we can easily assure you that the book is also for you even if you have a substantial basis in the language. English by the Nature method starts off with very easy sentences, as you may notice prior to starting the book, and ends with quite difficult sentences. Hence, don't be deluded by looking at the first few chapters and concluding that it is too easy for you. Hereby, the book has had two shortcomings with regards to its use by us. Firstly, it was not as publicly circulated as we believe that it ought to be, yet with the aid of videos like this one, I believe that it will have been overcome. The second and most crucial shortcoming was the absence of audio recordings, which fortunately are available in its entirety on our channel. The book consists of, with the use of British interlinear transcription, 740 pages, 60 chapters, and over 2,300 unique vocabulary. At the end of each chapter, you will find exercises and, when needed, grammatical explanations given in English. To keep it short, each chapter needs to be mastered before passing on to the next chapter, both in reading and listening. This means that each chapter needs to be read and listened to over and over again. Studied thus, the book will improve your reading, writing, speaking, and listening skills while keeping you motivated throughout your journey. The supremacy of the method used in writing this book cannot be consumed in an introductory video of this kind. Thus, believing that the aspirants listening have now received enough motivation to start this book, we can cut the video off here. Supplementary to this video, although not necessary, you can watch other videos on our channel for more detailed exposition about how to study this book, its structure, and so forth. Please comment any questions or suggestions below and subscribe to our channel.